your medical questions. She's here to help.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Kevin O'Sullivan is here between 7 and 10. Other side of the news and 10 o'clock. I will be back tomorrow for Drive between 4 and 7. So please join me for that. Also at the weekend between 10 and 12 on Saturday and 10 and 12:30 on Sunday. So there's lots to sink your teeth into. There's a lot of very, very big issues around, including the ones that Kevin was talking about there. Thanks to every single person who contacted the programme today, even if your text wasn't read out or your phone call not on the air. I really appreciate it. You can also contact Kevin on the same number, 0344 499 1000. See you tomorrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hey? What is that music? What is that? Excuse me, I don't want the audience to fall asleep. Can we get rid of that music, please? There we go, that's better. Oh, there you are. Welcome to the show. A little bit of a problem there, but we are off. Good evening, and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your happy host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be steering you through 3 thrilling hours of news, views, and dazzling debate. Get involved. Call me on 0344 499 1000. Or WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. Busy night again, of course. Here's what's coming up. More on the grooming gang scandal, Labour's reticence to get justice for the victims, and the vile pedo-rapists spare deportation. I think Elon Musk was right, quite right, to reignite a shocking issue that Keir and his lefty gang aren't at all comfortable with, and we know why, don't we? Our pathetic Prime Minister still seems to believe it's somehow far right and racist to go after the Pakistani predators and the various coppers, social workers, teachers, politicians, and various people in authority who turned a blind eye eye to the sexual abuse of thousands of vulnerable young white girls over 20 years or more because they feared they might be accused of racism and Islamophobia. Let's round up all the people, all the low-down people who failed these poor kids, and then let's put them behind bars. What do you think? Public inquiry, national inquiry, OK, if we must. But what I'd rather see is the people responsible for turning a blind eye and allowing this to prosper over probably more than 2 decades, maybe as many as 250,000 kids tortured and abused. The people who allowed that to happen, I'd like to see them put behind bars. I'd like to see them identified and jailed very quickly. What do you reckon? 0344 499 1000. In other news, 2 Tiers' latest Smash the People Smugglers initiative closed down suspects' bank accounts, which, like all of his other migrant crisis initiatives, just won't work. And as I just said to Peter Cardwell earlier, you know, who's going to decide whose bank accounts are going to close down? You know, we're supposed to be a rule of law here. We can't have the government marauding around saying, get that one, close this down, get rid of, don't let him on social media. On what basis? On what basis? And by the way, they will never find the people smugglers' bank accounts. They're not that stupid. It's ridiculous. More headline hunting and it won't work. Meanwhile, find out all about Donald Trump's anti-terrorism aide, who is demanding that Britain takes back ISIS bride Shamima Begum. Some old cobblers about our moral obligation. If we don't, he says the special relationship will be ruined. I say, forget it. Leave her in the Syrian desert. What do you reckon? 0344 499 1000. Plus, Liz Truss's bizarre legal letter to Free Gear Keir warning the Prime Minister to stop saying she crashed the economy. But she did, didn't she? What planet is she on? Talking of crashing the economy, Robert Reeves is doing a pretty good job of that herself. As the markets panic, the granny-freezing Chancellor of Doom swans off to China. Great! Have a nice time, Rach. From accounts, 0344 499 1000. And finally, Kinsey Schofield with the latest on the Los Angeles inferno. Friends of mine now. We had a friend of mine last night on the show, Jill Pringle, who lives in an area called Laurel Canyon. So she came on the show. I got a WhatsApp from her this morning. She's been evacuated. Another friend of mine who lives in Studio City, her house has burned down. This is right in the centre of LA. And they are not putting these fires out right now. That is a city that is turning into an inferno. It is an extraordinary story. I mean, yes, there's a lot of celebrities are losing their $1 million homes and all that. That adds a sort of certain headline quality to it all. But this isn't about Hollywood and celebrities. This is a beleaguered city that is on fire. You know, there's 150,000 people have been evacuated. It is a real catastrophe, a true disaster. So we'll get the latest from Kinsey Schofield. And we'll also discuss with Kinsey, a specialist subject, Harry and Meghan, on the subject of the Los Angeles fires, have put out this weird statement aimed at helping the victims. And, of course, hitting the headlines. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. Right, well, let's get going. Before we do go over to Isabel Oakeshott, our fabulous international editor, I should say that at 8 o'clock, in about an hour or so, it's the return of Call Dr. Renee. Dr. Renee Hunderkamp, GP, in the studio, answering all your medical questions. You know the drill. If you're not feeling very well, if you're having trouble with the NHS, health issues, can't get to see your GP, unhappy with your treatment, she's here to help. Give me a call or give her a call. Call Dr. Renee on 0344 499 1000. She really does help people. She really knows what she's doing. So that's in an hour's time. But first, some important stories to cover. So straight over to our international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
I've got a feeling that Dr. Renee is going to be absolutely inundated tonight. Everybody's ill at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, and you had a bad time, didn't you, over Christmas? You had the flu that Jeremy Kyle gave you.
Yeah, thanks, Jezza. Yeah. Jezza, the super spreader. Great.
Well, I'm glad you're right as rain now anyway. You seem very healthy again, so that's good. Before we get on to the grooming gangs again, can we talk about, old Keir's latest initiative to smash the gangs? Doesn't seem to be too keen on smashing grooming gangs, rape gangs, but still pursues his desire to smash the people smuggling gangs. This one is he's going to close down, or he wants to try to close down the bank accounts of suspected people smugglers. Now, this fits in with another of his many initiatives before Christmas, when he said that suspected people smugglers would have their laptops disabled and they would be banned from social media. Now, I'm all for punishing people smugglers if you can catch them. But in this country, we have a rule of law. Who's going to decide whose bank account gets closed and on what basis? This is prosecuting the unprosecuted. I don't want to go easy on people smugglers, but this is sinister. This is the authoritarian actions of a totalitarian socialist government. We will decide the criminals and we will punish them without putting them on trial, without convicting them. I'm concerned about this.
I think there's a lot of reasons to be very, very sceptical about this policy. First of all, does he really think that these criminals have a nice little current account with HSBC? Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Sorry, Isabel. I meant to say the other thing I was going to say, and lastly, it won't work. But carry on. Sorry.
I mean, come on. They're not with Lloyd's Business Banking, are they? They're banking with some kind of questionable Bank of Iraq, or some kind of very questionable bank of somewhere else that's got a lot of troubled situations in its financial sector. So I think that there is vanishingly little chance of Sir Keir identifying any genuine bank accounts which are associated with the real deal bad guys. And picking up on your point, the worry is that what this leads to is yet more misery for perfectly innocent people. The amount of fussing that there now is about anti-money laundering regulations for everybody who is just a normal citizen doing absolutely nothing wrong beggars belief. Many of our listeners will have been through this. Every time you want to do anything, sell anything, buy anything, open a bank account, whatever it may be, the faffing around that you have to do, the hoops you have to jump through to prove that you are who you say you are, when you're obviously who you say you are, is quite ridiculous. When the government routinely completely turns a blind eye to the money laundering that is on an epidemic scale underneath their very noses, all those fake barbershops, the car washes, all these obvious black market operations. Why isn't the government targeting those? They're right in front of their nose. These are all part of the criminal underworld. Forget trying to target some distant bank of something somewhere we'll never get hold of in Ethiopia. Not happening.
Yeah, I bet you, because a lot of drug dealers use this system now, I bet you they deal in bitcoins.
Absolutely.
Bitcoins are untraceable.
Absolutely. This will be cryptocurrency. Exactly right. It will be cash, it will be cryptocurrency, and potentially some very, very low-profile bank in a country that just doesn't sign up to many of the international banking agreements. So it's just a headline. That's what it is. It's just nonsense.
And also, I don't think that cracking down and getting tough should encompass ignoring the rule of law. I don't want to sound like a stickler here, but you could suddenly find tomorrow, Isabel, or I could. Our bank accounts are closed down, and we'll make inquiries. That's because you're suspected of being a people smuggler, but I'm not. Well, there's nothing much we can do about that. Do you see what I'm talking about? This is sinister territory.
Of course, I see what you're talking about, because the trouble that one has if one is involved in politics at all, of just trying to have a bank account, we know this from all the work that Nigel Farage did to expose NatWest, Coots, all of that saga. And so many people came forward at that time and talked about the difficulties they had had. I remember my own partner saying his sister had a problem as a result of her association with him. I mean, this stuff is absolutely crazy now. The last thing that we need is for the government to be adding extra layers of craziness into it, when actually their resources should be directed at actually stopping the boats. Just how about you do the physical thing required here? And
let's remember, they set up this Border Security Command as soon as they came into power on July the 5th. They have finally got somebody to take the job. I think his name is Martin Hewitt. He's a former copper, 200 grand a year. The first thing he said, and I think that was about the beginning of September, was, listen, smashing the gangs won't work. You need deterrence. So that's the first thing he said. Nevertheless, old Keir and Yvette Cooper stuck to their narrative. Smash the gangs, the evil smuggling gangs, and so on and so forth. OK, fine. Here we are, January. Have they smashed, never mind people smuggling gangs, a single people smuggler yet? Oh, I know the answer to that. It's no. So they're getting nowhere. They're just making these ridiculous announcements, headline hunting, and proving themselves to be completely, catastrophically hopeless when it comes to the migrant crisis.
Totally incompetent, and it will be one of many things that kill them politically. And they should surely know this. Surely they're going to have to come up with something better than this. I love the way they also they spun it as a world first. World first. Do they really think we're that stupid? Maybe they do think we're that stupid. We're not. Word to the wise, we're not.
Yeah, I think they're so stupid to believe that we're that stupid. Everybody's seeing right through them. As I say, what is it now? They've been in power 8 months, is it? Not a single people smuggler has been caught. There's been lots of announcements, and I think they've invested something like £175 million in drones and high-tech equipment. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Turn the boats around, or tell all these migrants, when you get here, because you broke our laws getting here, you can't come in, like Australia. That's called a deterrent. Maybe, it's too late now, but send them to Rwanda. This is just, it's a sort of ocean of hopelessness. It really is hopeless. And that is a microcosm for the macrocosm of this hopeless government on all issues. Tell you what we'll do now, Isabel. We're going to go to break, and I want to talk about a couple of aspects of the grooming gang scandal, because that still needs to be discussed. So that next, stay tuned.
I think we're very foolish not to. As you said, this is not actually, it's not a specific, I mean, it's put across from the Trump administration elected, I put it in those terms, in very stark terms, using all the kind of rhetoric which you get from the Trump camp. But it's not a new demand. The Biden administration have been saying that in the same way as the Biden administration was also talking to us about defence expenditure and where they want to be. We just really, as a country, and indeed as Europe as well, have not been listening to the Americans.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Don't forget, at 8 o'clock, I'll be joined in the studio by Dr. Renee Hunderkamp. She's here to answer all your medical questions. You know the drill, 0344 499 1000. But also, we're taking calls all night on any issue you like, particularly the grooming gang scandal, which Elon Musk, I think, mercifully has reignited. It was very bad that great scandal was getting buried, frankly. Now, I'm still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, last night we spoke about a guy called Curry Rauf. He was a sort of religious studies teacher, cab driver, father of 5 and grooming gang leader. He was part of a gang of 9 that raped, tortured and sexually abused 47 girls, some as young as 13. Rauf himself trafficked a 15-year-old girl, drove her to another flat where he took part in a gang rape. So we dealt with him last night. Now, this monstrous group was sentenced to a total of between 4 and 19 years in jail. So this was back, I believe, in about 2012, something like that. Within 5 years, only 2 of them were still in prison. And we're going to talk now about Rauf's sidekick, one of his sidekicks, a guy called Adil Khan. Now, both Rauf and Adil Khan were stripped of their British citizenship, but immediately renounced their Pakistani citizenship, and so were allowed to stay in Britain because they couldn't be left stateless, apparently. Now, Khan's case. Now, these guys, right, listen to this, they've been through before 12 judges, 3 Crown Courts, immigration tribunals and the Court of Appeal. Their long-running courtroom dramas alone have cost British taxpayers in legal aid £550,000. Altogether, for the Rochdale grooming gang of 9, we, you, me, every British taxpayer, we shelled out for these guys £2 million to defend themselves and to mount these challenges. Now, both Rauf and Khan were recommended for deportation, had their citizenship taken away, but were allowed to stay because they're now stateless. Now, Khan's success in this endeavour unfolded after he told a tribunal, you're going to like this, the judge swallowed this whole. A, he was innocent. Well, no, he'd just been in prison. He was found guilty by a British court. B, had not, this is my favourite, and I'm quoting, had not committed, and I quote, that big a crime. And C, he wanted to be a role model for his son and teach him right from wrong. On that basis, this monster was allowed to stay in this country. British justice, what a disgrace.
I mean, it just leaves you speechless, doesn't it? Particularly the role model thing. I mean, what an absolute appalling joke. It really is awful. You know what I would do with these people? I don't quite understand the thing about giving up their Pakistan citizenship? Is that something that they did voluntarily in order to try?
Yeah, they did. It was a ruse.
Well, in that case,
it was a ruse.
In that case, this is really quite simple, isn't it? I would say to them, either you take back your Pakistani citizenship, or we put you on a plane to one of our uninhabited bits of overseas territories, and that's where you'll be left, and you can make the best of it, because there is no way that this country is going to continue to support you or use taxpayers' money to allow you to try to game the system. So here we are, we're going to put you on a plane and off we go to somewhere off Pitcairn Island, and that's where you will be abandoned to your fate. That's what other countries would do.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I'm not going to mince my words here. These disgusting bastards are walking the streets of Rochdale, where they terrorise so many local girls. And these local girls, these underage vulnerable girls, often bump into them. One girl bumped into Khan in Asda in 2020. She said, "I've never been so scared in all my life. I felt like my heart stopped beating." Another girl bumped into one of her abusers and was so terrified she wet herself. This is what's going on. Now, only 5 months ago, one of the victims, mercifully, one of the rapists was getting convicted, and one of the victims was, of course, allowed her impact victim statement at the end of the trial. This is in Rotherham, where 1,400 girls were abused. So she submitted her rape impact or a victim impact statement to the court. Guess what? Sheffield Crown Court, the judge ordered her to remove from her statement her demand for her abusers to be deported. That was 5 months ago. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Why? On what grounds? How is that not a reasonable expectation? She shouldn't have to demand it. It should be absolutely automatic. We need to get tough on deporting people who come to our country and then break the law. We need to get really tough, like other sensible countries do. And if the law doesn't allow us to do that, then let's change the law. And if international laws don't allow us to do that, then let's derogate from those international laws, because you don't get away with this sort of stuff in other countries. So how is it that Britain has become some kind of sponge for these characters? And not only are they able to get away with the most deplorably short prison sentences for heinous crimes, and the victims of those crimes will never, ever get over it. It is life-ruining, this sort of thing. Not only do they get away with a couple of years in jail, or even less in some cases, when they get out, they continue to be supported by the British taxpayer. Are you kidding me?
I know. Well, yeah, as I say, Rochdale alone, this awful gang of 9, the British taxpayer forked out more than £2 million for their cases to challenge being deported, to plead not guilty and to fight these charges. Fortunately, they were all found guilty, but as you say, Isabel, they got pretty lamentably short sentences. Rauf, as we discussed last night, he got 6 years. He was out in 2.5. But the idea that these people who aren't even British citizens are walking among their victims, free men, it's an absolute disgrace. And I should say, by the way, I'm indebted to Douglas Murray. This is the main article in the new edition of The Spectator, in which he details this horror. I recommend everybody reads it. It's as I said last night, it is such an indictment of modern Britain. So this judge in Sheffield, indicative of all these people in authority who are still appeasing these awful rapists, these paedophile rapists. Frankly, we know why, because they don't want to be thought of as Islamophobic. They don't want to be seen being nasty to Muslim men. It's of Pakistani origin. It's still going on. The syndrome that allowed this to happen for more than 2 decades, which, by the way, continues, is still going on. That the authorities, the hand-wringing middle-class white authorities, are still worried about being called racist. It's just, it's infuriating.
people are so angry about this, aren't they? And I think the government is in a real bind over it. We saw earlier today the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, has broken ranks. He's a Labour figure, used to be a Labour cabinet minister in the Blair Brown years, and has now broken ranks, arguing for a limited, what he called a limited national inquiry, limited public inquiry, which is the kind of thing that you and I were talking about last night.
Yeah.
Something that just doesn't go on ad nauseum. And I think that's going to make life very, very difficult for Keir Starmer. I said yesterday on this show that the kind of mood in Parliament, there was a sense that the government might have to do a bit of a climb down on this. I think Andy Burnham has just made it pretty tricky for them.
Yeah, and we were talking about Jess Phillips last night, the Home Office Minister, and I watched all the footage last night, which I hadn't seen during that debate and everything. She looked very awkward. I think she wants an inquiry, but she's towing the party line. And Keir Starmer still doesn't want one because he was Director of Public Prosecutions when all this was going on and did nothing. I was the one who recommended prosecutions. Yeah, he recommended prosecutions in 2013, just as he was leaving that job. He'd been doing it since 2008. He presided over an administration that allowed this to happen. So it's uncomfortable for him, it's uncomfortable for Labour, and I think we should be indebted to Elon Musk for reigniting a scandal that should never have been buried. I hope, as we also discussed, Isabel, I feel I'm kind of diffident about the idea of a public inquiry. Public inquiries never achieve anything. They take far too long. We could maybe put a time limit on it, say only a year or something like that. But better still, right now, it would be good to aggressively go after all the coppers, all the teachers, all the social workers, all the local politicians who turned a blind eye and let all this grooming, gang rape go on.
Absolutely. People want retribution, and that is completely natural and reasonable. And I think there should be, post-event consequences for those people that, as you say, are roaming around. Maybe we can have some measures that ban them from particular areas if we literally can't get them out of our country. Yeah. One way or another, they should not be allowed to intimidate or frighten their victims. And yeah, I think it's an unholy mess. And Elon Musk is continuing to get stuck into this. He's been tweeting about it all day. Yeah, you'll like this, by the way. This is breaking news. The Labour government's counter-extremism unit has been assessing the risk posed to Britain by Elon Musk's tweets. What do you reckon of that? This is so fun. I mean, it's almost funny, isn't it? He's laughing. I love that. The risk posed to Britain by tweets. Unbelievable. Listen, we better go to break. When we come back, I might want to discuss one more element of this. This surrounds Labour's official Islamophobic policy. And then we need to talk about Sebastian Gorka, one of Donald Trump's, one of his counter-terrorism aides. He's sort of a British-American guy, a guy I usually rather admire, rather like. But he's demanding that Britain allows ISIS bride Shamima Begum to return from Syria, where she remains stateless in a tent in the desert. I think she should stay there. I usually like Mr. Gorka, but on this one, he can stick his proposal where the sun don't shine. We'll talk about that after these messages.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'll be taking calls later on, so do give me a call and let me know what you think of the fact that one of these paedophile rapists, one of these grooming gang paedophile rapists, a guy called Adil Khan, was allowed to stay in this country. He was going to be deported, but he was allowed to stay after he told a judge in court that he had not committed, quote, that big a crime. That he hadn't committed that big a crime. What he'd done is raped an underage girl. In fact, he'd raped a load of underage girls. He didn't think that was that big a crime. And because he made that excuse, he also said that, he wanted to be a role model to his son. He was allowed to stay. Unbelievable. So let me know what you think about that. 0344 499 1000. Oh, and by the way, don't forget that Adil Khan and all his mates, all the people that we pay for their legal costs, these are the 9-strong Rochdale gang, that cost us more than £2 million. £2 million in legal aid for these guys, including £550,000 for Mr. Khan and Mr. Rauf alone. This is insanity, isn't it? Insanity. 0344499 1000. Let's go back to Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I want to talk about Sebastian Gorka and his views on Shamima Begum in just a second, but just a last point on the grooming gangs. Labour's attitude, far right if you want a public inquiry, that kind of thing. The fact is, it's pretty clear to me that some of these Labour politicians, some senior Labour politicians, still think it's a bit racist, to bring this up, to go after those poor Pakistani Muslim men. It's a bit racist, it's Islamophobic. Well, this attitude, this hand-wringing middle-class attitude, appears to go back to a report by an all-party parliamentary group chaired by the then opposition, I think he was Shadow Health Secretary then, Wes Streeting, which, now this was adopted as official Labour Party policy when it comes to Islamophobia. This report warned, this was Labour's official view, that calling these paedophile rapists Asian grooming gangs played into age-old stereotypes and tropes about Islam and would, and I quote, heighten the vulnerability of Muslims to hate crimes. It concluded that talking about sex groomers was an example of Islamophobia. This was adopted as official policy by the Labour Party. It explains their attitude now. It explains why these groomers got away with it so long. Hand-wringing, white, middle-class politicians terrified to be accused of racism.
And this is absolutely the heart of the problem. And we talked about this last night, and I said then, and I'll say it again, everybody who has suggested that it is somehow racist to highlight the ethnicity of all these men is part of the problem. They are culpable too, because they've contributed to the culture that allowed this to be covered up and continues to allow this to be covered up. And there are commentators in the media, there are commentators on X who are still shrieking about racism and far-rightery. And we all know what that far-right smear is about. Again, it's basically alluding to racism or xenophobia.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly what it is. So Keir Starmer himself is essentially reiterating and underlining that same accusation. That is why all of this happened. That's why it was swept under the carpet. It's got absolutely the square root of nothing to do with Islamophobia. I don't feel an ounce of anti-Islam in my reading of this whole thing. What I see is criminals, barefaced criminals, monsters and apologies of a human being. And I see that needs to be called out. And you know, it is utterly shameful that so many people in influential positions, powerful positions, were too cowardly to say it as it was.
Indeed. Let's move on quickly to a story I think is worth discussing, and that is that a man I usually admire. He's a damn fine guest to have on your show any day of the week. His name is Sebastian Gorka, a forthright Trump aide. He's a British-American guy, and he's now Donald Trump's official counter-terrorism aide, and he's come out. It's an interview in the Times today. He's suddenly gone all left-wing, if you ask me. He's which he won't have done, but this is a left-wing kind of thing to say. He says that Britain must allow ISIS bride Shamima Begum to return from Syria, where she resides stateless in a tent in the desert. The American Justice Department is repatriating all of its ISIS traitors, saying it is their moral responsibility to bring their Islamic State traitors home and try them in the United States. Gorka seems to think that Britain must do the same. If we don't, he says, the special relationship will be ruined. Well, my attitude to that is, and I don't like to disagree with Gorka because I've got a lot of time for him, but on this one, Seb, you know, you can shove that where the sun doesn't shine. We are not having her back. And if she rots away in the Syrian desert, I could not care less. And by the way, if we do have her back, it will cost us at least £1 million a year in security, having to watch her all the way. She's still a terrorist threat, no doubt about it. This sort of depiction of her as an innocent schoolgirl who was groomed, forget it. So I think this is a strange thing for Gorka to say, and it's something that I think Britain must summarily reject.
I mean, the only miracle is that she is still out there because of our track record of doing the precise opposite of the right thing in cases like this. If she ever came back here, we'd never, ever, ever be able to mete out any proper punishment. There'd be all sorts of hand-wringing and endless human rights cases and her right to this and her right to that. Look at her. You know, she doesn't look too sorry for what she's done, does she? Bit of a poser there. I think that it's an odd one, an odd intervention by Sebastian Gorka. It sounds like a bit of rhetoric, really. It's hardly as if genuinely the special relationship, for what it's worth and such as it is, which is not a huge amount, frankly, at the moment, is going to disintegrate as a result of this one young woman. I think that's hyperbole, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's a strange thing for Gorka to say. As for the special relationship, you know, I lived out there for 10 years or so, and as a journalist, I often tried to look into what exactly the special relationship was, and usually what you found out was that most Americans didn't even really know where Britain was.
Right.
You know, there was a survey when I was there, seriously, 16-year-old kids in New York State, 76% of them thought that Britain was an island 3 miles off the coast of New York. So the special relationship is overstated, to say the least. I don't think it particularly exists anyway, but we like to kid ourselves that we have a very, very special place in the heart of America. It's something that we may be able to cash in on, because there's no doubt Donald Trump does like Britain. He does have an affection for us, so we should be able to cash in on that. But I hope that Gorka's statement doesn't get in the way. Just worth mentioning, I thought. Listen, let's go to break now. And while Labour's counter-extremism unit assesses the very real danger posed to Britain by Elon Musk's tweets, we're going to talk next about Liz Truss, who was sent a strange legal cease and desist letter to Keir Starmer, warning him to stop saying she crashed the economy. Well, she did, didn't she? And mind you, to be fair, Rachel Reeves is doing a good job of crashing the economy as well. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay tuned.
to one of Keir Starmer's, speaking to sort of Downing Street people before Christmas, and they reckon the Prime Minister genuinely thinks there's a 1 in 3 chance, 3 to 1 chance, so 25% chance that Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister. And you just think, if that's what
so the Prime Minister thinks that.
I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, they think he's going to be up against. He thinks he's going to be up against a right-wing populist force.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know who it's going to be yet. Either it's going to be Reform, and they keep their act together. They've been pretty good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, what did you make of this rather strange move by the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss? If you remember, she was Prime Minister for, I think, about 45 minutes. And Keir Starmer and Labour are fonder of accusing her of crashing the economy. I mean, she did come up with this mini budget, which, shall we say, did not have a particularly advantageous effect on our economy. And she was gone within 45 days after a sort of desperate scramble of sacking Kwasi Kwarteng, her Chancellor. But she couldn't cling on and she went. She's now she's got her lawyers to send the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, her successor, if you like, a cease and desist warning legal letter, warning him to stop saying she crashed the economy. Now, you know, I do think that poor old Liz did get a bit of a hard time. I mean, her budget was... I mean, I quite liked some of the elements of it. I liked the ideas behind it, but I think in practice, in reality, it was far too drastic and it was a big mistake. You could argue she didn't crash the economy, though. But I'm quite alarmed by the idea of a politician sending a rival politician a legal letter to tell him to stop saying stop making accusations about her, because this surely is part of the cut and thrust of Westminster. We've got to allow politicians to call each other's names, otherwise, we're going to get nowhere. What do you feel?
Well, what I feel is it's just a PR stunt, and I can't quite work out whether it's very clever or is actually really daft, because what's happened is that many of us have spent much of the day talking about Liz Truss crashing the economy. So all that's happened is that we've largely reinforced and echoed the claims again and again and again and again. She does have a point. I really liked her budget. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I thought it was exactly... I
did too, yeah.
It was a properly conservative budget. It was tax cutting. It was aimed at boosting growth, genuinely had some chance of doing so. Her big mistake was not to have set out the cuts that she was going to make in order to fund the cuts to public spending that she was going to make in order to fund the tax cuts. But anyway, let's not go over all that again. In long and the short is that she's been very much traduced reputationally. And I kind of admire the way that she picked herself up pretty quickly. I mean, this was the absolute mother of all humiliations, wasn't it? I mean, it was a humiliation of historic proportions, to be ousted as Prime Minister of this country within a matter of weeks. It's virtually unheard of. And a lesser character would have just sloped off and never been heard from again. And instead, she's come out swinging. She brought out her book, and that must have been, there were really tough moments then. And remember when she was on that stage chatting about her book at some kind of, festival or something, and those Muppets that led by donkeys, I think it was them, apologies if it wasn't, put a big sign behind her head saying, "I crashed the economy." I mean, it was so humiliating for her. And I just rather admire the fact that she's just bloody well kept on going. She's trying to style it out. She's trying to walk tall. And there's something really kind of impressive about that, I think.
I think, I mean, I detect signs of PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, that somehow or other it was so traumatic that in some kind of way, I think she remains in a kind of delusional state. I mean, it might.
The character, Kev. I know her a bit, and she is. I'm just going to call her politely a little strange, and I say that with a bit of affection. She's not. She's quite an unusual character, I would say, and I'm sure that still waters run deep, and there's much more going on there. But this is a woman who's quite able to absorb and take things the rest of us wouldn't be able to, and doesn't necessarily react in an entirely normal way.
Yeah, no, indeed. And I'm sure Keir Starmer won't take any notice at all of her cease and desist letter, because she's not exactly going to take him to court over it, is she? Because if she does, good luck with that, Liz. Now, talking of crashing the economy, we've just got a few minutes left, Isabel. Let's talk about that other person who's doing a damn fine job of crashing the economy. That's the current Chancellor of the Exchequer, old robber Reeves, Rachel Reeves. Now, the front page of the papers today are all full of the markets panicking, her plotting to bring about sort of massive spending cuts and to impose yet more tax hikes to get through this. Her budget, her £40 billion tax grab budget in October, wasn't it, has been and continues to be an absolute disaster for this country. Now, she's taking measures to try to do something about it, but she's left us in a mess. And where is she now? She's swanned off to China. I mean, what?
She's gone off to make a few new communist friends, has she? I mean, I don't really like the spectacle of our politicians cozying up to the Chinese anyway, because talk about a one-way relationship. The Chinese are only out for one thing from us, and that is advantage over us. They are going to do whatever they can to exploit whatever we possibly can give them. So I just really am uncomfortable about it. The Chinese regime is a hostile regime towards us, and they are up to all forms of no good, and they may not be quite as flagrant about it as Russia, although they'd be quite keen on, I'm sure, getting Taiwan. But it shouldn't be underestimated, the scale of the Chinese threat. And as for Wrecker Reeves and her economy, I mean, it's a complete mess, isn't it? And this is going to have a real impact on all of us. If interest rates stay as high as they are, mortgage rates go up, there are real consequences. I even saw earlier reports that food prices may go up again. So this is pretty real stuff. Yeah. And, how does she get her way out of it? Now there's talk of more taxes. Are you kidding me? How's that going to do anything other than paper things over? What they need to do is massively shrink the size of the state. But they're doing the opposite.
And don't forget, Isabel, I mean, the markets are seriously panicking. And sterling, the pound sterling, has tumbled to its lowest level against the American dollar for over a year. This is a serious situation. That budget, I mean, we're fond of saying it was disastrous. I think we're only now finding out just how disastrous it was. And, it still staggers me. They are still saying, it never was this, but they are still saying, incredibly, implausibly, that this was a budget for growth.
I know, isn't it laughable? And the Treasury continues to say this. They come out with phrases like, the Chancellor is determined, we'll be fighting for growth in every which way. The only thing that's growing is the size of the state's liability as we continue to import millions more people who are not net contributors. It isn't difficult to work out that if you keep on bringing in people who don't contribute and are actually taking more than they give. And if you continue to allow millions of people who could be doing a proper day's work not to do a proper day's work, and I'm not talking about people who literally, physically or whatever, mentally can't, I'm talking about the shirkers. If you continue to allow that, then you're basically going to go bankrupt.
Yeah, we're in a really parlous state. And yesterday, the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle, who loves to jet around the world himself, by the way. He has racked up some expenses over the last year on a load of freebies and jollies, fact-finding missions to places like the Cayman Islands. Yeah, but I wonder what facts he found out there. So he likes a jolly himself. So he allowed a special session of Parliament yesterday morning, because this is being seen as such an emergency. Frankly, at such an event, at this special calling of Parliament, the Chancellor should have been there. But no, she's in Beijing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so I think this was an urgent question this morning, and she got a kicking, and quite rightly so, or rather a kicking in absentia, because this is a true and looming crisis. And Reeves had told us all, as if this was any comfort, that her 41.6 billion tax raising raid was going to be a kind of once in a Parliament thing. So let's get all the bad stuff out of the way, and then it'll all be nice, happy days. And now we're hearing that actually she may have to do another budget in the spring, come back for more, and it's going to be yet more negativity. I mean, the story of this government is astonishing in its staggering incompetence and the way it lurches from one blunder to the next. And amid all of this, we hear that Keir Starmer may be considering giving literally billions to Mauritius as part of this Chagos deal, so-called deal. You know, we give something away, but actually we get charged for giving it away. I don't know, I'm struggling to think
it seems to me that deal is something like Britain going, oh, look, it's only right that you have the Chagos Islands, Mauritius. Well, we don't really want them. We'll give you 90 million quid a year. How about that? You know, billions over the years to come. Oh, all right, then. I mean, unbelievable. Isabel, what a fantastic 2 days. We'll talk again next week. Thank you so much. Isabel Oakeshott there, Talks international editor. You know what's coming up next? It's Call Dr. Renee. All of your medical questions being answered right here in the studio with GP extraordinaire, Dr. Renee Hundekamp. So get your calls in 0344 499 1000. Here comes the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It is called Dr. Renee. Dr. Renee Hundekamp is in the studio. Welcome, Renee. Happy New Year and all that. This is the first Call Dr. Renee of 2025. You know the drill. If you've got health issues, you've got problems with the NHS, you can't get to see your GP, you're worried about your treatment, you're unhappy with it, you just don't feel very well. Doesn't have to be you, could be a loved one or a friend. Call Dr. Renee on 0344 499 1000. She's here to help and she's very good at this. So get on the phone with any of your medical problems. Call me or call her as soon as you like. Now, before we get to your phone calls, we always like to discuss a medical or a health issue story. And Renee is an impressive campaigner against what you might call over-aggressive trans rights campaigners. Now, the one we're going to discuss today, Renee, is that a nurse who has gone to a tribunal, she's a whistleblower, and she has launched a campaign or a claim saying that she didn't want to share changing rooms, to change and get dressed in front of a trans woman.
Good for her.
Yeah, trans woman is a man. A man in a dress. Yeah, so anyway, this has gone to. It's up in Scotland. It's an employment judge has to that judge's credit. I don't know if it's a man or a woman. The nurse is called Sandy Peggy, and the NHS tried to have her case held in secret. Of
course they did.
The judge, the employment judge, to his or her credit, emphatically rejected an attempt by NHS Fife to impose reporting restrictions. Why do you think they'd want to keep this secret?
Because I think that they have every intention of continuing this madness, as we see every single day of the week. So they don't want anything that might upset that apple cart and destabilise it, because they're trying to portray the lie that actually most women are kind and they don't mind this kind of thing at all. They don't want to show the world that actually women do mind this thing and they don't want it, and they don't want to be forced into sharing this delusion with men who want to be women.
Yeah, now, Sandy Peggy has been suspended. This is why it's in an employment tribunal. She's been suspended from her job and accused of bullying after she complained about the presence of a trans woman doctor who she claimed looks like a man. Wow, how about that?
But don't they always?
That's because she is a man, he is a man. And she said, so Peggy, or Sandy Peggy, said that, you know, she felt very uncomfortable and didn't want to get changed, to undress in front of this bloke at the Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy. Now, the doctor at the centre of the row is someone who calls himself Beth Upton. Now, his defence is, you know, and this is what the NHS are saying, he considers herself a woman and uses she, her pronouns.
Good for him.
That's great, Dr. Upton, that you consider yourself a woman. There's a slight problem. You being a doctor, you might understand this. You're not a bloody woman, are you? I mean, that's the point.
Do you know what's not being said about this, which is even more interesting, is that apparently Dr. Upton's trans identity is not known to everybody. That means female...
What does even all this mean? It's like a different language.
But what that does mean is that female patients are being seen by Dr. Upton and they're being coerced into believing that Dr. Upton is a woman. That is outrageous. That is not free choice. And the other thing here, Kevin, is why is it always the woman, the true woman in this story, who is suspended because they won't play along with this game?
Yeah, and I've got the name of the employment judge now, Antoine Tinian. Well done. Good name, Antoine Tinian. Well done, Judge Tinian, who he rejected calls to hold these proceedings behind closed doors because he said this was a matter of legitimate public debate and a substantial political and moral and legal argument was warranted. So good for Judge Tinian. But Dr. Upton, Beth Upton, him, you can use your pronouns, she and her, if you want to. I don't think we will tonight. Is that all right with you? Because if it's not, we don't care.
Do you know what I think about
he says that this Dr. Beth Upton, voiced fears that Sandy Peggy's attitude and response smacked of anti-trans violence. She just doesn't want to get undressed in front of a bloke.
Man. Yep. And, nor do I. So I wouldn't get undressed in front of you.
Well, it depends which bloke it is, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I guess so. Don't say that to Colin. But,
What's the one I had in mind?
If Dr. Upton wants to work as a doctor and pretend that they're a different sex to what they are, then the only suggestion I have is that they work in a non-patient-facing speciality.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere where they don't have to, pretend to patients that they're something that they're not, and secondly, that they use the changing rooms to which they were born.
Mm-hmm.
And on this occasion, it's a man.
Yeah, so this is, NHS 5, as I say. Dr. Upton, Beth Upton, to be fair, said that she was very pleased that the hearings would be held in public, go ahead in public. So it was the NHS that was trying to spare its own blushes. So good for Dr. Upton on that front. Now, Peggy, or Sandy Peggy, keep saying Peggy as if it's her first name, Sandy Peggy, she said, and this is her quote, "My case is about whether the hospital and Dr. Upton subjected me to sexual harassment and discrimination by forcing me and other female colleagues to share a changing room with a man identifying as a woman. Going to an employment tribunal is very stressful for all concerned, but everyone has a right to a fair public hearing. Changing rooms are a place where we expect privacy."
Would this be okay if Dr. Upton identified as a child and wanted to change with children?
It's a really good point. I mean, the point is, so there's the Doncaster. There's 5 nurses in Doncaster pursuing a very similar.
But they've been
case.
given a cupboard.
Yeah. But these were 5 nurses at a Doncaster hospital who objected to a bloke sharing their changing room. It was a trans woman, someone identifying as a woman, and that case continues apace. But this is becoming more and more of an issue, and the NHS seems to want to let any bloke who says "I'm a woman" change with real women.
Well, and this is because they now have a Labour government that they know, in reality, will support them.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We were moving away from this. We were winning this battle, and now we've gone backwards. And unfortunately, I don't see that's going to get any better.
Well, I wish Sandy Peggy all the best. I hope she wins this case. Nothing against Beth Upton, to be fair, except, I don't know, if I was Beth Upton, I'm not sure. These trans women, I think it's part of their shtick, isn't it? They like to get into the women's loos.
I think this is misogyny. These trans women are misogynistic. They actually don't like women. And this is what this is about. They are going to force their will and have the power in what is essentially a misogynistic relationship. It's the biggest misogynistic movement that we've seen.
Yes, there were apparently Peggy Upton, Sandy Peggy, there I go again, Sandy Peggy and Dr. Upton had words about this, but I assume that Sandy said, "Get the hell out." She said to Dr. Upton that the changing room was, and she said, a protected disclosure, or that her dispute was a protected disclosure,
which it is,
covered by whistleblowing laws. So she's whistleblowing this situation.
Well, actually, her belief is a protected characteristic anyway. We are allowed to believe that sex is immutable and that you can't change sex. But you know what? You just need to look back to Canada. And to look at Riley Gaines, not Canada, America, Riley Gaines, the swimmer, who was forced to change with Leah Thomas, who was a 6'5" man with a penis. And now that that's all come out, and she's spoken about it, she said that he liked nothing more than parading around their changing room naked.
Yeah. Peggy, stop saying it, Sandy Peggy. Sandy says, she said that she holds the belief that Dr. Upton, notwithstanding her self-identified gender status, is male and a man.
And she's allowed to have that
Why is this a disputed case in a court? He is a male and a man, isn't he?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, we've got to get past this, folks, don't you think? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. You can call up during Call Dr. Renee if you like. We can all talk about it. But, you know, this tyranny that is imposed on all of us, that if some bloke puts on a dress and says, I identify as a female, we all have to go, oh, yes, you are a female, you are a woman. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, as I say, they want to do that, fine. I don't care how people live their lives as long as they don't harm anyone else. You want to put on a dress, if you're a bloke, you want to put on a dress and say you're a woman, live as a woman, great, whatever makes you happy. But don't order me to believe biological untruths, to decry scientific facts. You can put on a dress, you can live as a woman, doesn't make you a woman, right?
Well, OK, that is such a crucial point. Women have spent the last 100 years trying to get away from the stereotype that a woman is a dress, a bit of lippy and a pair of high heels. Suddenly, having won that battle, now it is. Now, when a man puts on a dress, some high heels and a bit of lippy, they're a woman.
Yeah, and what about we better move on soon. But what about the NHS? Got all these literature and pamphlets, you know, but great big pamphlets and leaflets about pregnancy, never using the word mother.
Yep.
You know, still referring to pregnant people and people with cervixes and all this. I mean, this is insane. Why isn't West Reading doing something about that claptrap?
Because he used to work for Stonewall.
Oh God.
Deep down in his heart, we know where his thoughts lie.
And we also know that he will be the latest health secretary not to reform the NHS.
100%.
He's already dancing around the edges. Let's get rid of all these unnecessary appointments. Oh, that's really going to sort everything
Do you
out.
want to hear a story that I heard today about the NHS? Very quickly. There is a London hospital that's fairly new, that has 2 entire floors that are empty whilst they rent out a building next door to put all the admin staff in. That's number one. They've opened a new centre down the road with a new scanner, and they've demanded that radiography staff move from the main hospital to the other one to man the scanner. When it's been pointed out to them that just means that there'll be no extra appointments because you've got to move the staff down there, they say it doesn't matter. We've got to be seen to be using the new scanner. No new appointments, just moving deck chairs on the ship.
Here's an idea, Wes. You got 800 diversity officers. They cost £40 million a year. Sack them all now.
Yep.
Use the £40 million to hire some more doctors and nurses and maybe some more ambulance drivers. You got 3,500 middle managers on £100,000 or more. Some of them on like £500,000. Just pen pushers. Sack about 3,400 of them and use that money. That'll be millions and millions of pounds just to improve the NHS. There you go, I'm sorting it out.
Yeah.
He won't, it's so obvious.
They can't.
But he won't do it, will he?
No, of course he won't
When
do
you
it.
say things like that, Renee, people go, oh, that doesn't cut to the heart of the issue. Yes, it does.
It's only a little bit of money here and a bit there and a bit there and a bit there, and it all adds up to billions.
Come on, Wes, you're better than this. Sort this out. Stop the madness. That's the point. The NHS is in the grip of utter woke madness, and you need to do something about it. And if you don't, you will go the way of all your predecessors, to hell in a handcart, not sorting out the NHS. That is a cast iron guarantee. So there you go, Wes. There's your blueprint. Do what you're told. When you come back, we're going to be talking. We'll take your calls. We've already got them piling in. It's call Dr. Renee. Give us a call with your medical problems. And if you want to talk about the trans issue at the NHS, I think we could probably fit that in as well. So 0344 499 1000. Call Dr. Renee. She's here to help. Stay tuned.
One of the reasons, well, there were twofold, really. One was that the announcements were very unexpected, if you remember. I think, whilst I think this current government has massively overdone this talk of a big fiscal black hole, and they themselves haven't helped all of this. If you remember, there was almost no preparation by the Liz Truss government for the announcements they then made in their budget. And one of the other things they did was they didn't ask the Independent Office of Budget Responsibility to prepare the numbers. And the point is, you do need that independent set of numbers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Dr. Renee Hundekamp. It is called Dr. Renee. Give her a ring with any of your medical problems. 0344 499 1000. Let's go straight to the phones, and we're going to talk to Elizabeth in County Armagh, Northern Ireland. She's got fibromyalgia. Hello, Elizabeth. Talk to Dr. Renee.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, Renee.
Hello.
I'm having a major flare-up of my fibromyalgia.
Sorry, Elizabeth. Can you just speak up a little bit? You're quite faint.
I'm having a major flare-up of my fibromyalgia, and I was wondering, is there anything I can do?
Could you explain what fibromyalgia is?
So fibromyalgia is all over body pain, and it's diagnosed when the pain is in a certain number of points, specific points in the body that doesn't seem to go away or wax and wane with time. And then obviously, as we're seeing here, at points it can actually just really flare up. How old are you, Elizabeth?
66.
When did it start?
About 2 years ago, but this specific bout started a fortnight ago.
Mm-hmm. And you've had all your joints checked out for osteoarthritis?
Yes.
Have you got osteoarthritis?
No.
No, okay. So the answer to this is I don't know anything that you won't have been told, although... So I was having although. I was researching this week acupuncture purely because I went for some acupuncture this week, which I do from time to time just to relax. And I thought I'd just do a piece on actually that there's lots of data behind acupuncture. And one of the things that came up when I was researching it, that apparently it can help with the pain of fibromyalgia quite well. So that's what I'm going to put in the pot for you today. Why not find someone locally who can do some acupuncture for you and see if that helps?
It's worth a try, isn't it, Elizabeth?
Anything that's worth a try, because I'm just so sore.
Well, I find acupuncture so relaxing that for the hour that I'm in there, I actually go to sleep, and I'm really upset when they wake me up and tell me it's over.
So just to stay on the line, Elizabeth, explain what exactly is fibromyalgia, what causes it, how does it manifest itself?
It manifests itself in all over body pain in different joints. It quite often affects women more than men, and it is an all over pain in specific joints. But we don't really know the origin of it, but it is a diagnosis that we see all of the time now, and it is common, and it's common in women more than men, and as women get older. I do wonder if menopause plays a part. And I think sometimes thinking about HRT might be worth trying, because we know that joint pain accelerates after menopause. So that's something else you could consider. And at 66, you might think you're too old, but you aren't necessarily if you've got a good doctor who knows how to do a risk assessment.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're in Northern Ireland. I know that your healthcare there is pretty shot, Elizabeth.
Yes, well, our ex-chief executive of our local trust said this was one of the worst trusts in Europe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, really? Oh, dear. Well, do you think that's a good idea? I think it's worth a try, the acupuncture thing. Yes? Elizabeth?
Anything's worth a try. It's just the tiredness and the pain.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, tiredness is a feature of menopause as well. I mean, it might be worth trying to get to a menopause clinic. But in the meantime, why don't you try acupuncture? And why don't you let us know if it does work? Because I would be really interesting to know, because it's something I can then mention to other people.
Mm-hmm. Anything?
Yeah, we'll try that, Elizabeth, yes?
Good luck.
Right.
All right, you look after yourself. Thank you very much for the call. Take care now. It's Elizabeth in County Armagh. That sounds bad. I mean...
Yeah, it's common.
But it's rare. Or rather, it's
common.
But you don't really know what causes it.
I mean, there are various different theories.
Is it a joint thing, or...?
It's mainly centred around joints, but it is all over body pain.
Blimey. Sounds like me after a few pints the night before. Right, let's go to... we've got plenty of time. Let's go to Hereford and talk to Chris, who's got a problem with... is that Chris a man or Chris a girl?
Chris, it's a man.
I don't think you're allowed to ask that.
Yeah, well, or are you gender neutral, Chris? No,
I'm a man.
Okay, it's Chris the man. He's got a thyroid problem. Chris, talk to Dr. Renee.
Hello, Chris. I know lots about the thyroid because I don't have one.
Yeah, basically, about 6 months ago, I'm under the hospital then in Hereford. In oncology, I'm going to the oncology department in Hereford Hospital, and I've got overactive thyroid, basically. So they've given me medication to control it's called it begins with a C.
It's carbamazine.
That's the one. Basically, my specialist has said to me that there's only about a 50% chance your thyroid will go back to normal. So she suggested either to have my thyroid surgically removed, or basically cleared off radiation. So I don't know why. I don't know. I'm debating to either have that treatment, because if it's not going to get any better, I was just thinking about options of having either that done
Okay.
Because it is affecting my way of life at the moment.
Have they not corrected it with the carbamazine?
No, it's basically when I first went to the hospital, my count was very high.
Yeah.
But they've reduced it. My count's gone down now slightly bit.
Okay, let me just explain to everybody what happens. Your thyroid is the engine of your body. It runs absolutely everything from how fast your heart beats, your gut works, your skin grows, your brain works, your sleep, everything. It is critical that it works properly. When you get Graves' disease, which is probably, I think, the diagnosis that you've had, and your thyroid starts producing too much hormone, your heart beats too fast, you get palpitations, you don't sleep, you get diarrhea, it's awful. So what we do when that happens, generally, we give this drug to suppress your thyroid, but we usually give you some thyroxine at the same time. It's called a block and replace. So we block your thyroid doing its job, but we give you thyroxine at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, usually we advise people to stay on that for about a year, and after the year, a lot of people, I would say more than 50%, but anyway, a lot of people can come off it and their thyroid goes back to normal and works properly for them.
Yeah, she said that. So
right, I would always hang out for that. And I say this because I don't have a thyroid at all, and it is not so easy keeping it in the right range and feeling well as it sounds. It's not as easy for some people as just a tablet a day. I had a really rough time for about 7 years before I found a regimen that works, and it can be quite hard. I've also had radioactive iodine because mine was cancer, so I had to have both. Now, that's not an exact science either, and you can be left with too little or too much, and you can also increase your risk of further cancers down the line, unfortunately. I wish I'd known that at the time. And so I would say that if it were me and I was in your shoes now, I'd hang on to my own thyroid for as long as I could. I always joke, Chris, that I'm going to write a book one day that's called Look After Your Thyroid, because you'll miss it when it's gone.
I was going to say, do you miss yours?
I do. I really do. So I would try and stay on the drugs now. Make sure that they're doing your drugs regularly and they've got you properly balanced.
Well,
see.
I'm going to the hospital next week, I know, for my 6 weekly checkup anyway. So
good.
I'm under the hospital anyway. So
I'd hang on to that thyroid as long as you can, Chris.
Yes, I will.
All right, Chris, good call. Thank you very much. Look after yourself. That's Chris in Hereford. Got the right doctor there, didn't he?
He certainly did.
Yeah. So you had yours up because of cancer, yeah? Was it cancer of the thyroid? Okay. Is that rare?
So the one I had was very rare. They only saw it in people over 60 and I was 30, and there's no treatment for it.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to reveal you're over 60.
No. So, I had a Hurtle cell tumour. We think it was actually because I had too many x-rays as a child without thyroid protection.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You know, you're talking about acupuncture. We used to have a dog called Dottie, and Dottie she had quite a bad back. And so we once a month the dog acupuncturist used to turn up, and she loved it.
It's really,
She loved it. She'd lie there, and, there's all these pins all the way down.
So relaxing.
It's quite a thing for pets as well.
Yeah. And there's good, there's good data about it working, but we don't really know how it works.
Yeah, no, exactly. I've had it myself a couple of times. I think I tried it once to give up smoking. And the pins hurt so much I had to have a cigarette. No, that's not true. That's not true. It was like, I am that Mark Twain of smoking, So giving up smoking is easy. I've done it hundreds of times. When I was in LA, right, I went to this hypnotist, and I remember her name, Juanita Holmes. Right, down on Beverly Boulevard, and I go, Robertson it was, So I park my car across the street, I go in to her sort of surgery, and she sort of like going to hypnotise you now. So I'm lying there and she's doing all this stuff.
I bet you can't be hypnotised.
Nothing happened. I said, well, I'm not sure about this. She said, you think you're not being hypnotised, but you are. I said, you're all right then. So I lay there for about an hour and she said a few things and she played some music. It was all in the dark. And when the session ended, I said, well, I didn't feel I went over. And she said, oh, you don't think you do, but you won't want a cigarette again. I said, okay, great. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, thanks. Here's your $300. So I go down in the elevator, as they say there, and hit the ground floor, went over to my car, and without thinking, like I always did in those days, just picked up the Marlboro and I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. $300 that cost me. Anyway, but I think it does work for some people, but it didn't work for me. In the end, when I gave up smoking, you know how you give up smoking?
When you really want to.
Yeah, exactly right. I realised that when I finally gave up smoking, which was about now 30 years ago or something, it was the first time I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, I really wanted to.
It's the same about losing weight. When you really, really want to, you will.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, we better go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Alison in Buckinghamshire and then David in Scotland. So stick around. It's Call Dr. Renee. Give her a call with any of your medical problems, health issues. It doesn't have to be you. It can be a loved one. 0344 499 1000. She's here to help. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's Call Dr. Renee. Give her a ring with any of your medical problems. You know the drill. 0344 499 1000. Let's see if we've got any messages for you. I'd like to at least... got lots about the nurse and the trans doctor here. Actually, that's well, here's one. Yeah, this is from Gemma Atkinson. She says, hello, Renee. I've started my new meds, 25 milligrams of, lamotrigine once a day.
Lamotrigine.
Okay. Well, she spelled it lamotrigine.
Okay, it's lamotrigine.
Okay, once a day for a fortnight, then going up to 50. So far, so good. I feel like they are happy, shiny. I think she must have given us a call before. I think she's given us an update. Gemma, maybe give us a call, because apologies, but I can't quite remember this. But oh no, she did spell it right. You're right. Anyway, all the best, and give us a call if you want. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to the phones. Alison in Buckinghamshire. Hello, Alison. What would you like to say? Talk to Dr. Renee.
Hello, Alison. How can I?
Don't bother with me. I don't know what I'm talking about. You know.
You can't even read, Alison.
Oh dear. What I wanted to ask was, I had a cervical smear done last year, and it came back that I got the HPV virus. Now, I don't know anything about it. They didn't explain anything to me. It was just, I've got to come in like this year. I've got to come in yearly.
Yeah.
I don't know I mean, I don't know anything about
this. This is a great question. I like this question because this is the typical, isn't it, of doctors who are really busy and the NHS who send out these things and say nothing. So basically, we now know that most cervical cancer is caused by about 4 different strains of a virus called HPV.
What is that? What is that?
It's going through my head. It's like the herpes virus.
Oh, it's like a herpes.
Yeah, it's like herpes virus, but it is. But it's the HPV virus. It's 16 and 18, 11. There's different numbers, but most of the cervical cancer is caused by them. So about 5 years ago, they changed the way that they do smears. So instead of looking for bad cells now, they look for the HPV virus. If you're positive for that, then they look at the cells as well to make sure that they're either not changed, just about changing, or you have cancer. So most women have the virus but don't have any changes, and most women's bodies will actually get rid of that virus within that year. So the reason they call you back in a year's time is they'll test again, and the chances are that you will no longer have it. It's a really common virus. It's carried by lots of men as well. So it's really, really common. Now, the women who tend not to clear the virus on their own who are women who smoke, interestingly enough.
And I do.
Okay.
You do smoke, do you?
All right. So
you should give up, Alison. It's bad for your health.
Recreationally, I do.
So maybe that's a good spur.
Cigarettes years and years ago, but I gave them up.
So maybe that's a good spur to just not even smoke recreationally and let your body do what it's going to do naturally and get rid of that virus. Just because you are smoking recreationally doesn't mean you won't clear it, but that's just the demographics and how it stands. Most women will clear it, come what may. So go for that smear in a year's time, and hopefully, if you're like most women, you won't have it anymore.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, like, if it gets, what are the symptoms if obviously,
Okay.
If anything happens, if that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the reason they call you back in a year is the chances of something developing in that year are really, really low. So that's number one. That's why we have a smear every 3 years, because if you get a clear smear, we know that even if there's a cancer there in 3 years' time, it won't be advanced enough to actually be something we can't treat. So I wouldn't worry about that, but just in case, the symptoms that you want to look out for in cervical cancer is bleeding between periods, bleeding when you have sex, unusual discharge, losing weight, any pain that you've got in your pelvic region. I think the chances of that are almost obsolete, but obviously it's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I do get pains there, but I have diverticulitis, so but it's a bit difficult to sort of work that out. But obviously since I've turned 50, because my period stopped when I was 43, they just stopped. They didn't cut down, and I'm 53 now, and I was okay until I hit 50, and I've just felt the worst I've ever felt in my life.
So why don't you go and get some HRT?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was going to do that.
Do you know how many women say to me, I now feel, once they've started HRT, I feel like my old self again?
There you go.
Yeah, the problem is my body doesn't like anything in it.
But you're only putting back into it. But you are only putting back into it the hormones that your body made for itself anyway.
That's very true.
If you were diabetic, you wouldn't shun insulin, would you?
No.
If your thyroid stopped working, you wouldn't shun thyroid hormone.
True.
So get some HRT then, Alison. Yeah, that's an order. That's an order, okay?
Okay, I'll do it right away.
Okay, you let us know how you get on. Thank you very much for the call. Look after yourself. Alison in Buckinghamshire. A quick message. I did find one that you might be able to help with. Happy New Year, Renee, says John.
Thank you, John.
He says, my mother has burning mouth syndrome. She doesn't sleep and is generally miserable. Any ideas for a cure?
Really awful, this. It really is, and it's not as uncommon as it sounds. And this is a sensation in your mouth. You've eaten chili and your mouth is on fire.
All the time, yeah?
All of the time.
What causes it, do we know?
Again, it's something that we don't know. It can go up and down, and certain foods can aggravate it. So I think the most important thing is making sure that your mouth is moist. So you can get dry mouth sprays, dry mouth lozenges. You can get gels that actually numb things. You can do a diary to try and get
these over the counter?
Yeah. You can do a diary to try and get things out of your diet that actually make it worse. You can get toothpaste. There's one called Proline that moisturises your mouth when you use it, and it's quite kind. And then obviously there are other things, like they sometimes use some antidepressants, some nerve killing drugs, things like that. But it's something that we really, really struggle with, and it is a horrible problem, John.
Well, there's a few ideas there, John. Give them a go. Let us know how your mum gets on.
I might do an Instagram on that, because it's actually
all right.
really
well,
common.
also, how do they look you up on Instagram?
Just Dr. Renee Hunderkamp on Instagram.
Look up, John. Look up Renee on Instagram, and she's going to maybe
make a note so I don't forget.
Post about that. All right. So Happy New Year to you as well, John, and your mum. Right. Let's go to. Yeah, we've got time. Let's go to Andy in Kent. The note I have here. Hello, Andy. He says, I had sepsis. How can I get back to a normal life? Talk to Dr. Renee, Andy.
Hello, Andy. Congratulations on being alive after sepsis.
Hello, good evening. Happy New Year to you all.
What happened?
How did you get sepsis?
Right, well, I had my second COVID jab, and I developed blood clots in my legs. And don't get me wrong, I don't sit at a desk all day. A physical job, and eventually the GP wouldn't see me at the time because of COVID and everything else.
As long as you had your jab, John, that's what they worried about.
Yeah, I ended up with C6 venous ulcerations in my legs. Luckily, my wife, the job she works, we have private medical insurance, and I ended up in hospital for 5 weeks. They saved my legs. I ended up with sepsis. And anyway, 3 years later down the line, I've had to learn to walk again. They saved my legs, and the district nurses, they change my bandages twice a week, and they do a damn good job. Don't get me wrong, but I need to know. I want to get back to some sort of
to a normal life, like the life you had before, right?
I've also I have heart failure as well.
I was just going to say, that was going to be my next question, that you had to have something else going on, because your legs haven't healed since then, have they, Andy, by the sounds of it?
They are. They're getting better, slowly and slowly.
Before we go on, Andy, hang on a second, Andy. Andy, hold on. Can you explain, Renee, what sepsis is?
So sepsis is when you have any infection, and it could be anything from just a sore throat to a little cut on your finger, that actually, instead of your body getting rid of it as it normally would, it actually gets into your bloodstream and it spreads throughout your entire body, so you have a multi-organ infection and failure in the end. It really is dangerous, and people do die of sepsis, too many people, every single day. So yeah, it's serious, and you know, you can lose limbs. In fact, there was that MP, wasn't there, recently?
Yeah, Craig McCloskey.
Yeah, who lost all of his limbs.
He was actually on Julia's show yesterday, I think.
Oh, okay.
He's a regular guest. Good guy, by the way.
And that was sepsis, because you know, you just lose blood flow to all of those body parts. So you've done well, Andy, to be where you are. In terms of getting you back to normal, that's difficult. So you've got heart failure, so that limits you anyway in what you can do. How old are you?
I'm 67.
So you're young. I mean, that's really young. So is there a rehab programme that they can send you on? Your GP, are there any rehab programmes?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't go. I've sort of gone with what the district nurses say when they come in. They change the bandages 3 times a week. The wounds are getting smaller. It's basically from below my knees is basically open wounds.
Okay.
Not as bad as they used to be, but they're getting smaller. I had to have operations in hospital where they clean the veins out. They flush the veins.
Yeah.
They flush them out, and then I had to have 3 or 4 debridements.
Yeah. I mean, look, you've really been through it. With all due respect, district nurses are brilliant, but they're brilliant at what they're brilliant at. And I think it's time to maybe go and have an appointment with your GP and ask them for a plan to help you rehabilitate and get moving again. And there might be some graded exercise classes that they can get you to, some rehabilitation classes. There's always a heart failure clinic where they may well have some rehabilitation clinics as well. But I think you need a bit more than the district nurses now. I think you need to go to your GP.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Andy.
Good luck.
Well, good luck. Keep in touch and look after yourself. Let us know how it goes, yeah? Andy in Kent there. We better go to break now. Got lots more calls. Call Dr. Renee, 0344 499 1000. She's here to help. Stay tuned.
Two days ago, a 14-year-old boy stabbed on the bus in broad daylight. Something has to change. Real action is required, and that's why we're asking the Mayor to declare a public order emergency and to really ramp up a range of initiatives that would help get back on top of this. So we want to see a dramatic increase in stop and search, particularly in hotspot areas. We want to boost police presence, and we want weapon sweeps across key areas in the capital. It's only by taking real action and real steps that we can get on top of this crisis before it gets any worse. Otherwise, we'll be on course for yet another record year of knife crime in our capital city, and it's simply not good enough.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's called Dr. Renee. All your medical problems, if not solved, certainly helped. So let's go straight away to... is it David in Scotland, who's been waiting, I think, a long time? Hello, David. I can see you need advice on something, and I'm going to leave you to pronounce it to Dr. Renee. So fire away.
Hello, David.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks very much. Lovely programme, and
thank you.
Love you, Dr. Renee.
Oh,
I think we've touched on this issue before. It's hemochromatosis.
Yep.
The first time I heard was a few months ago.
Which is, sorry, David, which is what?
Hemochromatosis.
No, Renee will explain it. You hang on just a second, David. What is it?
Hemochromatosis is a genetic disorder, usually, not always, but usually, where people build up too much iron in their body and it deposits itself in their organs, like their liver, and it does long-term damage if it isn't found.
OK. All right, David, carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Understanding's of a good thing. And it originated from the Celtics in Ireland, caring for...
Okay. Oh, right, so
I've got a brother. Anyway...
This is the Celtic curse, isn't it?
So it's quite common among Celtic people. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, come on.
Anyway, it's been an ongoing thing in my family. I was a family of 11 and lost 3-4 brothers through different... It's like... and it was all related. You can't say for 100% sure it was related to that, but then when we found out about hemochromatosis, then it was like...
It made sense.
It made sense. That's it. And now I think it's becoming more relevant. And anyway, the thing is, I've got an iron over. I've got hemochromatosis, but I've now got a low hemoglobin count as in lack of iron, and I'm trying to get my doctor to explain to me what the difference is with why I've got a low iron but I've got an iron overload. Do you understand, Dr. Renee?
So you're anemic because your hemoglobin is below normal range.
Yes.
But you still have an iron overload.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't actually understand that and can't fully explain that because I don't know the intricacies of hemochromatosis, I'll be honest with you. Is your ferritin raised or just your iron?
It's about 4 or 5 months ago, after a venous section, I got my ferritin down to a normal level, but then things have happened, and then my hemoglobin is low.
Okay, so if you have too much venous section, so one of the treatments for hemochromatosis is that you give blood on a regular basis, so they just take some blood away. Maybe they've taken too much, David. That's all I can think.
Right.
But they also need to investigate you for other causes of low hemoglobin. We don't like to see anemia in men. So I would say I'll have a look at it, call back another time, and maybe we can just explore it further. And in the interim, I will have a look at it as well, I promise.
Tell you what, David,
I'm still on... I'm on hospital treatment and going for further investigations. It's just knowledge of, like, something that...
Listen,
I'm going to have a look at it for you.
Yeah, why don't you give us a call back same time next week between 8 and 9 on Thursday.
Right.
Dr. Renee will have a look into it and we can help you out, yeah?
The other thing is just to let the amount of people from Ireland and, what is it you call them?
Celts.
Celts. Celts. Yeah. It's unbelievable how it affects, I think, from about 40-year-olds upwards. And honestly, it's just to be aware of it.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, David, just give us a call back next week. Renee will look into it and hopefully she can help.
I'm making a note, David.
She's making a note now. So call back next week. David in Scotland will remember you and we'll have a chat then. In the meantime, thank you very much for the call and look after yourself. That's David in Scotland. We've just got time now to talk to Teresa in the lovely county of Devon. Hello, Teresa. You're a dance teacher and you got a problem. Talk to Dr. Renee.
Hello, Teresa.
Hello. Sorry, I might be a bit nervous.
Don't be nervous.
Don't be nervous. You're among friends.
I normally do. In short, I went to talk to my doctor, my GP, probably not this summer, some previous, because about HRT, because I watched the Davina McCall programme. And in short again, because my mum died, she was a nursing officer actually, so that's another subject I want to talk to you about with the NHS, but anyway, I'm not here about that. Because she died 34 years ago, and I thought, well, after watching the Davina McCall programme, because I can't take HRT because her cancer was estrogen-fed.
Okay, so that's not true. I'm going to stop you right there. So this is a myth about HRT. that you can't take it because you had a relative with oestrogen-fed cancer. It's just not true. Now, if your mum had had a gene test and she'd had a BRCA gene, then that's a different situation. But lots of breast cancers are oestrogen-fed, but they're not BRCA. But this is a myth that many doctors who aren't up to date on the data tell patients, and then patients carry on suffering when they could, in fact, have HRT.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I will talk to my doctor about that, to ask to talk to a hormone person. But the reason I was actually calling originally is I've been having pains in my hip, and the reason I went and had that looked at is because both my sisters have been diagnosed with osteoporosis, been diagnosed with osteopenia.
Okay.
The pain, well, originally they said I didn't have it, but then they said, oh, yeah, it's osteopenia. But the pain I'm getting is, again, short. They thought it was to do with my spine, but because I'm a dance teacher and I'm so flexible, hyper flexible, they're saying it's a labral tear. Inquiring to find out about the collagen injection I could have rather than the steroid injection.
Yeah, I mean, labral tears are quite common in, you know, many of us once we get over a certain age, just because wear and tear, it happens.
I can't walk very far at all, let alone hardly do my job, which I'm struggling.
So why don't you want the steroid injection? Because they work really well in hips.
I don't know. I'm someone that doesn't really like taking paracetamol, but my daughter's manager had a collagen and he said it worked perfectly.
Okay,
So
all right.
more information on it, really.
It's very experimental collagen. It's, you know, it's like hyaluronic acid into joints. You know, there are people that swear by it and say it's brilliant and the data doesn't back it up. I'm not going to knock anything because I think, you know, if it will work, it, you know, great. It doesn't matter how it works or how many people it works for. But the steroid injections work as well. I mean, I've had them in just about every joint you can imagine because of osteoarthritis. So if you're asking me about the collagen injection, I think you'll be hard pushed to get that on the NHS, but you might. Steroid injection is much easier to get.
Okay, it's just a bit difficult because I'm a carer for my husband as well. But I'm in quite a lot of pain. I mean, it's going into my psoas muscle, into my glutes, down my quads, everywhere, down to my gastrocnemius, into my foot.
So, I mean, if I were you, I'd go for the one that you can get the most quickly, to be honest with you.
Okay, brilliant.
All right, Teresa.
All right,
Well, best
Teresa.
of luck.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling. You
Take
look
care.
after yourself. That's Teresa in Devon. Amanda in the West Midlands, I'm afraid I don't think we're going to have... All right, no, we haven't got time to talk to you. She's had a cyst for 30 years. Any thoughts?
Oh, look, where's the cyst? What, you know, I'd have so many
Amanda,
questions.
I'm very sorry, we've run out of time. Amanda in the West Midlands, please give us a call this time next week for Call Dr. Renee between 8 and 9 next Thursday. Sorry we didn't get to you. Sorry to everyone we didn't get to, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. We get a lot of calls for Dr. Renee. She's a very popular doctor. So thank you very much, Renee. Another great night, and you'll be back next week. Now, next up after the 9 o'clock news, we're going to go over live to LA for the latest on the fact that my old hometown, Los Angeles, is turning into an inferno. It's extraordinary what's going on there. A friend of mine was burnt out of her house last night. Others have been evacuated. So Kinsey Schofield on that next, plus the Royals. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the final hour of tonight's Political Asylum. In not too long a time, 20-25 minutes or so, the floor is open to all of you. We're going to be taking calls. You know what we're talking about, the grooming gang scandal. Andy Burnham, big Labour beast. He's the mayor of Manchester, former cabinet minister, of course, under Tony Blair, I think. He has broken ranks and said that, contrary to what Keir Starmer says, there should be what he calls a limited national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Now, when Keir Starmer says there's already been one, that's not true. In 2014, the J report was into child sex abuse, not grooming gangs. So there has not been an inquiry into grooming gangs and the grooming gang scandals, the rape gang scandals, to be honest with you. Now, I can see the argument against a national or public inquiry because they never achieve anything and they go on for about 10 years. What I think is there should be very, very aggressive action to track down as many as possible of the coppers, the teachers, the local councillors, those in authority who turned a blind eye and allowed this horror to continue for something like 2 decades, if not more. Thousands and thousands and thousands of vulnerable young girls, many of them underage, systematically groomed, raped, tortured by these mainly Pakistani Muslim male gangs. People should be brought to justice for this. Those kids, those poor little girls, deserve justice. If that's a limited public inquiry, and when I say limited, I think we should put a time limit on it, 1 year. If that's the form of justice they get, fine. But frankly, I'd like to see those who turned their backs prosecuted. That's what I'd like to see, and fast. It's time now to go over to Los Angeles. What we're going to do, usually we just sort of discuss the Royals now, but there's something rather more important going on in Los Angeles now, as you've obviously seen, that city has been engulfed by an inferno. It's a massive city, and great swathes of it, right in the centre, are just on fire. I'm seeing neighbourhoods that I used to go amongst a lot, that I used to see destroyed. It looks like the apocalypse. You know, beautiful neighbourhoods destroyed. The number of celebrities whose homes have been consumed and destroyed by fire is extraordinary as well. This is not a celebrity story. This is about all the people, all the citizens of that great city just being razed to the ground, their homes being razed to the ground. If you want to know the celebrities who've lost their multi-million-dollar homes, it's John Goodman, Anthony Hopkins, Miles and Kaylee Teller, Eugene Levy, Billy Crystal, Adam Brody, Leighton Meester, Anna Faris, Paris Hilton, Jen Atkin, Sandra Lee, Ricky Lake, Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag, Matthew Perry's former home, tragic former Friends star, of course, James Woods, Mark Hamill, Star Trek guy, Ben Affleck, and so on and so forth. But they're just the celebrity victims. There are millions of, not millions, but thousands of victims of this dreadful, dreadful fire. Wildfire just spreading through LA. So what we'll do is we'll talk to Kinsey Schofield, who of course is a resident of that great city, first about this, and then we'll have a chat with her about Harry and Meghan. So welcome to the show, Kinsey.
Yeah, Kev, I know that you say it's not really a celebrity story, but I think that there are some elements of that, because a lot of these people that are speaking out against our government officials today and over the last 48 hours are people that endorsed those government officials. So it's almost like they're realizing that the people that they pushed so publicly weren't capable of handling an emergency situation. You know, the absolute Karen Bass, Where the
That's
hell are
your
you?
mayor. I've got a good clip here. Have a look at this. This was on Sky News last night. They tracked down your mayor, Karen Bass, to the airport where she was about to board a plane. Have a look at this. This is extraordinary in my view.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Yeah, so she was in Ghana while all this was happening. But what kind of a mayor is that? I mean, what the hell does she think she's doing? I mean, surely she could speak to that reporter, at the very least say, this is a tragedy, this is awful, you know, I'm so sorry for our city, or something like that. But to stand there like some kind of, you know, dumbstruck criminal, it's just bizarre. It would strike me she's not fit for this job. And of course, is it a year or so ago she cut back funding to the fire department, which
almost $18 million.
Yeah.
Almost, she wanted to cut $25 million. She settled on almost $18 million. And do you have the clip of where she finally does open her mouth? And her suggestion is, if you need help, emergency information resources and shelter, all that can be found at URL. She doesn't even say the website. She says all of that can be found at
URL. So she doesn't, and she's not even in the city when all this happens. She's in Ghana. We've got another clip, and this is from the U-Haul governor of California, the governor who makes everybody leave California to live in different states, Gavin Newsom, the Democrat wannabe president, who shouldn't really be allowed anywhere near government at all, if you ask me. But here's Gavin Newsom.
What is the situation with the water? Obviously, in Palisades, ran out last night in the hydrants. I was trying the firefighter on this block. They left because there was no water in the hydrant here.
The local folks are trying to figure that out. I mean, just when you have a system that's not dissimilar to what we've seen in other extraordinarily large-scale fires, whether it be pipe, electricity, or whether it just be the complete overwhelm of the system. I mean, those hydrants are typical for 2 or 3 fires, maybe 1 fire. You have something at this scale, but again, that's going to be determined by the local.
So that's Gavin Newsom. And just lastly, Kinsey, let's have a look at Donald Trump, the president-elect, of course, responding to this catastrophe. It's not quite in. We'll play you that in just a little while. Now, Kinsey, we had a friend of mine on last night, Jill Pringle. She lives in Laurel Canyon. And she said that, you know, the fire seemed to be coming their way. The following morning, I woke up, she sent me a WhatsApp. They got evacuated. There's been 150,000 people evacuated, 5 dead, thousands injured, thousands of properties destroyed. As I said, I just went through the celebrities. I mean, these are completely razed to the ground. Is there not some kind of insurance issue as well? It seems that many people who lived in Pacific Palisades, you know, this very exclusive area where Tom Hanks and the likes of that live, that somehow or other they had their insurance cancelled, or some kind of insurance problem.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say it's not, why couldn't Gavin Newsom have just said, I'm asking those same questions? And, you know, that would have been a much more empathetic response and compassionate response than you guys got to figure it out. I mean, that is just, this guy wants to be our president? Go away. There was one woman that absolutely broke my heart. Her parents are 90 years old. They've lived in their home for over 70 years, and they lost their insurance 2 months ago. The family was evacuated. so fearful that they were going to own or lose the home that they've lived in for 70 years. Their daughter stayed behind with a water hose to save their house because we don't have enough firefighters. And our firefighters ran out of water on 3 separate occasions on Tuesday. They have limited resources. And when they are desperate to contribute, they're just running into these blazing homes and pulling out any sort of personal belongings for the homeowners. But then they have to rush over to the next fire. And, you know, that's resulted in 20 arrests for looting because the second the firefighters go away and the cameras go away, people are crawling into these homes and stealing from these victims. But yeah, you know, the insurance companies have been just terminating the agreements they have with people in wildfire areas. There's no morals in that completely, and there are allegedly the government is working in some way to try to find a resolution there, but the majority of these people, like James Woods, an actor, he's like, I don't have insurance.
And you see their house, you saw Anthony Hopkins' house, which I think was worth something like $7 million. It's just gone. It's gone. Now, we've got Donald Trump now responding to this situation. Let's have a look at the president-elect.
Well, it's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called a smelt. And for the sake of a smelt, they have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants today in Los Angeles. It was a terrible thing. And we're going to get that done. It's going to finally be done. I got it done from the federal side, and he didn't want to sign it, but it's not going to happen again like that. There's no reason. Can you imagine? You have farmers that don't have any water in California. They have plenty of water. They don't have a drought. They send it out to the Pacific, and it's crazy. So what's happening in California is a true tragedy. I know those areas very well. I have many friends living in those houses. That is a true tragedy. Nobody ever thought. I mean, virtually Beverly Hills and areas around Beverly Hills are being decimated. The biggest homes, some of the most valuable homes in the world are just destroyed.
Yeah, so Kinsey, it's apocalyptic, isn't it? And the difference between these fires happen every year. This is quite late for these fires to happen, but they usually happen around the periphery of the city, places like Malibu in the hills, you know, away from the city, in the mountains and everything. This fire, or these fires, over literally sort of 40, 50 square miles, have spread straight through the centre of the town, hitting Hollywood Boulevard, which was evacuated last night, you know, Sunset Boulevard, going right through the centre of the city. So that is the difference. I mean, that your city, or LA, must be absolutely traumatised by this.
Yeah, currently there are, well, the Sunset Fire, we believe, has been contained, but there's the Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, and the Hearst Fire. Zero containment for Palisades and zero containment for Eaton, where we lost 5 individuals. And yeah, we are devastated. It's scary. I remember on Tuesday night, you know, LA, no one has air conditioning. You know, we're all by the water. All of these buildings that are older, none of them have AC. We live with our windows open 24/7. All I could smell was bonfire. You'd look outside, all you could see was smoke. I mean, and that's toxic.
Yeah.
And it was scary because you can smell it. And I mean, the fear's there. I mean, thankfully, all I lost was sleep. But I have friends that have lost absolutely everything. And I feel guilty for some of these people that are on, you know, people are saying, oh, these are celebrities, they can rebuild. But some of these people are retired. Some of these, their home was all they had.
Yeah, and as I say, you know, this should not be characterized as a celebrity story. This is a story of a city that is in the grip of a terrible inferno. We've never seen anything like this, I think, anywhere. I mean, when I was there, we used to have these every year, you know that, but nothing like this. This is extraordinary. But we'll talk about Harry and Meghan when we come back, but just before we do, because it seems relevant, did you see they've issued a statement about all this, saying in the last few days, wildfires in Southern California have raged through neighborhoods and devastated families, homes, schools, medical care centers, and so much more. A state of emergency has been issued. If if you feel compelled to help, here are some resources and ideas. So it goes through all these organisations you can contact. Open your home. If a friend or loved one or a pet has to evacuate and you are able to offer them a safe haven in your home, please do. And be sure to check in with any disabled or elderly neighbours to see if they need help evacuating. Some families and people have been left with nothing. Please consider donating clothing, children's toys and clothing and other essentials. The American Red Cross is on the ground helping those in need. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. I suppose it's well-intentioned, but I'm sort of moved to ask the question, you know, why? Who the hell do they think they are? Why are they issuing this statement?
Yeah, well, thanks, ChatGPT, for those suggestions. I guess my first thing would be, why do they pick and choose certain causes? I haven't seen any statements acknowledging the death of Tiggy's stepson in New Orleans, and people were horrified by that terror attack on New Year's Day. I'd also say, you know, I guess that it's better than frolicking on Instagram on the same day as multiple terror attacks. But you've talked about Blake Lively a little bit on this show how she's become the villain. And what I will say about Blake and Ryan is when they do this stuff, they say we will match every dollar up to. I mean, I think that is, you know, that to me is powerful. Please donate. We'll match every dollar up to. And Harry and Meghan are in that position. Look at their Netflix contract.
Yeah. Now, they're saying, oh, if you can help, if you can offer people safe haven in your home, please do. I think they got about 19 spare bedrooms up in Montecito, haven't they? Any offer to any of the victims of this fire by the gruesome twosome? Have they offered their home to any of the victims of the fires?
It's a fair point. I don't think that's on that's going to be on their agenda. But you know, I do think that we have to acknowledge that this is a rare moment where it does seem like they're trying to do something nice.
I suppose so. But I mean, as I say, I don't want to be too cynical about it. But I just think, well, you know, and I suppose it's well intentioned. But you know, who the hell do they think they are? It's ridiculous. But, you know, as I say, let's not be too nasty. I suppose their intentions are good. Let's go to break now, Kinsey, and we'll discuss the eventful week for Meghan when we come back. So stay tuned, everyone.
At the same time, you've got Rachel Reeves's budget almost like a boiled frog. It wasn't the immediate sort of market scepticism about it, but it's taken a couple of months, but it's really ticking up. Borrowing costs are going up. She's due in China this week, so Chris Philp on the show today has come out and said, she shouldn't be leaving the country. Last time a Chancellor left the country when borrowing rates were this high, it was Kwasi Kwarteng, and he flew home and he was in the car from Heathrow Airport back to Westminster when he read on Twitter that he'd been fired.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with royal commentator LA-based Kinsey Schofield in a city that right now is suffering destruction on an epic scale. I've just seen, Kinsey, a picture of an overhead of the Palisades, the Pacific Palisades. Lovely area, full of celebrities, multi-million-dollar. It's gone. It's just gone. The whole area has been burnt to the ground. I cannot believe it. And these are areas, obviously, I know well. I can barely recognise them. But let's get back to Harry and Meghan, or more particularly Meghan. She's had a busy week. Now, you and I discussed a couple of times this week already the fact that January the 15th, is that next Wednesday, something like that? When is that? January the...
Yes, Wednesday. You and I have a date. We've got to talk.
Absolutely. So January the 15th, next Wednesday, that is D-Day. That is the day on which the rest of Meghan's life will hinge, because it's as important as that. That is when With Love Meghan, her lifestyle cooking show, hits Netflix and is available for viewing. It's an 8-part series. It's made at her home. Oh, wait a minute. It wasn't made at her home. She was made at a rented home where she bakes cakes for her friends, puts...
Hey, Kev, if she won't even let Netflix in her house, why would she let anybody else in her house?
Absolutely. So she's sort of picking flowers and telling us how to freeze edible flowers into ice cubes, making little edible ladybirds, pouring olive oil into hummus, making something pretty ordinary into something, elevating it, and so on and so forth. Laughing, frolicking with her friends. You and I spoke the other day about the appalling timing of the release of this happy, snappy, sunshiny trailer, which was the day after the New Orleans terrorist atrocity that shocked America, shocked the rest of the world as well. So they should have left it. They should not have put that out then. But the whole series seems to me to be light, trite, pointless and based on nothing. You know, who the hell does she think she is to say, hey, I'm the lifestyle queen, I'm the domestic goddess? Who said you are? You know, you're obviously quite a good amateur cook. You know, I'm not a bad amateur cook. Doesn't give me the right to make a series telling you how to live your lives. It's full of all her rich white celebrity friends, all prancing around in expensive designer outfits and their expensive jewellery. I think we've seen the comments already on the Netflix online site. I mean, people are actually offended by this. So I think it's going to fail. I think it's going to fail badly. And she hopes it will succeed because she wants to relaunch American Riviera Orchard on the back of it. So next Wednesday, if this series doesn't work, I mean, all of her plans come crashing down, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. She's lighting some candles. She is, you know, God knows what she's doing over in Montecito right now, on her knees, praying to God that all goes well on Wednesday and that somebody will say something nice about her. Did you see the article from BET about how white women are so jealous of her success? I thought, oh my God, if this is her PR pursuing these kinds of pieces, what are you doing? You are alienating.
She said that. She said that.
No. Meghan didn't say it. It was in a piece from BET about how white women are just envious of Meghan Markle's success. But you know, you can't alienate your audience. She is supposed to be welcoming to everybody. I would push back on those stories. I wouldn't want anything to do with that kind of narrative, because you can seriously alienate a huge chunk of your audience that way. But yeah, I mean, I just think that if this doesn't work, Kevin, where does she go? Because we know that the Lemonada podcast does not even remotely compare monetarily to the Spotify agreement that was terminated because Spotify was unhappy with what they received in return for that for that money.
Archetypes was Dullsville, 12 episodes of sheer tedium. Unfortunately, she's going to unleash another series of archetypes, as you say, via Lemonada. Let's get back to that in a second, but let's talk now. Well, actually, I think let's just remind ourselves of this trailer that was released on a very inappropriate day, one day after the New Orleans atrocity. So let's remind ourselves of the trailer.
Let's make a show.
Let's go. I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it. Surprising people with moments that let them know I was really thinking of them.
What? This is probably one of the most glamorous moments of my life.
It's magic. I'm going to share some little tips and tricks. I see what color I gravitate to, and everything goes from there. And how you can incorporate these practices every day. That's what you want. You want that shape and texture. Come on. This is about connecting with friends. I love that we're doing this together for the first time. Making new friends. That is so good.
We're family now.
I'm just learning. Look at how much honey we have.
Do you believe in love?
We're not in the pursuit of perfection. Woke us all up. We're in the pursuit of joy. Love is in the details.
I have to do it totally wrong
to get it totally right. Look at what we made. Guy snoring. Peaceful day.
Sorry, I was just being sick there. But I want to actually say something seriously, Kinsey. Guy, her beloved dog there, has subsequently died, and for that, she has my full sympathy. Very sad. So that's a dog she's had for a long time and has died in the last week or so. So,
well, I'll be the jerk here. I'll be the cynical one. We don't know when Guy died, and perhaps that post was, just an effort to change the conversation because she's been absolutely destroyed over that trailer. The feedback for her. Just the trailer alone has been incredibly negative. And guess what? It changed the conversation. Now everybody was talking about Archie and Lily's voices on her, Meghan's latest Instagram post. I'll be the cynical one. I'll be the jerk. But let me tell you this.
I thought I was cynical. You knocked me into a cocked hat there. I
don't drink alcohol, and I'm telling you, I might have to drink alcohol on Wednesday to get through that.
Yeah, I've been trying not to, but I think next Wednesday I'll probably down about at least a bottle of scotch to get through that episode. Now, the point is, again, another issue that you and I have discussed. I know something about television, and I know something about movies, about how, what makes them work. It's quite simple. You just don't bore the audience. Make sure that your production, be it TV, be it drama, be it a movie, is not boring. Now, frankly, a bunch of, rich, white Californian girls running around going, hey, lovely, oh, hummus, oh, you put some on. That's boring. It's boring. Oh, look, here I am picking petals. Now, if the public, incredibly, decide that they might be able to get by without Meghan's advice on how to freeze edible flowers into ice cubes, then this show flops, and so does Meghan. I think if this show flops, obviously American Riviera Orchard will be in big trouble, and her entire future will be under a cloud. She'll have to work out what to do. So this 8-part series, as I say, based on artifice, based on deception. Oh, look at me in my home. It's not your home. You rented it to film. So I think that was a big mistake. Harry crops up now and again, old ginger nuts. But this series seems to me to be very boring. It seems to me to be based on a woman saying, hey, look, I've got all these lifestyle tips. Yeah, so what? Who are you? Who are
Kevin,
you?
Kevin, this show is 20 years old. Today, content it's pouring out of our fingers, literally. And we are seeking authenticity because it's out there. It's on YouTube. It's on TikTok. We're desperate for people that are sincere and authentic. This is a 20-year-old show. You could have gotten away with something as highly produced as this is 20 years ago, as boring as this is 20 years ago. But today, we have Pinterest. Everything on that trailer I've seen on Pinterest. We have people that are authentic on TikTok, actually in the kitchen, actually in their own kitchen with their kids screaming in the background. That is what people have become accustomed to. That's what people are pursuing. And there's nothing on. That trailer was magic. There's nothing about Meghan that is authentic, and people are going to reject the idea that a woman that has spent 4 years tearing down the monarchy, complaining, is now trying to become the face of joy. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and she tries to be so cutesy. Oh, I love to surprise my friends with how much I've been thinking of them. Then there's a picture with Harry, one big happy family, apart from her family. Her poor father, her ailing 80-year-old dad, her half-brother, her half-sister, who she has ruthlessly cut out of her life because she doesn't approve of the way they behave. Their behaviour is not met with her regal approval. So they're gone. So this cutesy, oh, aren't I lovely, aren't I friendly, aren't I wonderful, doesn't really play out in real life if you examine her existence, her privileged existence. So I think this series sounds to me to be very, very boring, therefore will not work. As you say, it's an old-fashioned idea, it's derivative, there's no basis for her doing it. She's not Martha Stewart, she's not Nigella Lawson, she's just some woman in California who says, oh, I'm quite a good cook. We're not looking
that married a guy, that married a famous guy.
Yeah, that married a famous guy. You cannot marry into stardom. You just cannot make yourself a celebrity by marriage. You have to have star quality, and that's what I think she doesn't have. Let's move on now to, my feeling is, why doesn't this woman leave us alone? We're still trying to recover from the tedium of the first series of archetypes. Now she's going to give us another one. What can we do to persuade her not to, Kinsey?
I don't know. I have heard through my contacts that the king is like, you know what, that would be the best thing in the world if her cooking show was a success. You know why? She'd lay off him. She'd lay off his family. He feels like a lot of their bitterness stems from the fact that they have not been able to achieve much since they stepped aside from the royal family, and achieving any of their goals might give them the positivity to lay off the royal family, I guess, the positive energy to do that. When it comes to podcasting, Kevin, these are the pursuits. These were her dreams before she met Prince Harry. She walked away from being a duchess and actually doing things that really changed the world within the royal fold to being a podcast host and being a talk show host. And these are both things that she was doing, a cooking show host. These are both things that she was pitching prior to marrying Prince Harry. Her dreams are coming true. Are his?
Yeah, but, don't forget that both these two, when they got married and they moved to California, they were going to change the world. The Archwell Foundation. We're going to make a world a better place. We're going to help people. We're going to run charities. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to really, really be massive philanthropists around the planet. And it's all boiled down to that. None of that has come off. But she's baking cakes for a TV show. That's what her life has come down to.
And asking Mariah Carey if she minds being called a diva on the podcast that she said was going to be all about people that were making positive change in their communities. Mariah Carey? Diva?
And then Mariah Carey said, well, you're a bit of a diva yourself, and she got all offended, didn't she? And it was when I listened to that series, the Archetype series, that's when I realised this woman, Meghan, she's got no idea. She has no notion of what is tedious. She thinks signalling her virtue and, her wonder and smiling and grinning, while talking to famous people about virtuous topics is entertaining. Well, I got bad news for her. It's not. So that series was a disaster. It got her sacked, basically, by Spotify. The next series I can't see will be any better. And as for With Love, Meghan, I mean, good luck with that, Meghan. You're going to need it.
Yeah, no, you're right. The problem with Meghan is that she doesn't listen to these people that have established, successful records when it comes to the industries she's trying to pursue. She had no record of being a successful podcaster. She had 17 different producers on the original Archetype season, and Spotify still turned her away because she refused to listen to their guidance and she refused to engage in some of their, their creative ideas, how they felt like they could make her a success, because she was just very stubborn and wanted things her way. And I think we've seen similar issues with Netflix. That is why I'm very curious to see what the results are of this program. And if this program is a flop, I would say it's likely because Meghan's fingerprints are all over it, because she was bound and determined to be in control of this project too, and didn't listen to the advice around her from the people that have proven track records.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he doesn't seem to be doing anything. And by the way, his Netflix series Polo, about that Chinless Wonders horse sport, was released early in December. I mean, it sank without trace almost instantly. Absolute disastrous turkey, bombed completely. And I've got a feeling that With Love, Meghan will go in exactly the same direction. I mean, I genuinely wish her all the best, but I don't think she's got a chance with this. And then what does she do? I don't know what he's doing anymore. I don't know what she's doing anymore. But we'll keep a watch on them, shall we, Kinsey? What do you reckon?
Yeah, cheers on Wednesday. Virtual cheers.
Yeah. Let's. We'll chat next week, and we'll both watch Wednesday's episode and have a chat about that soon afterwards. Kinsey, listen, stay safe in LA there, and thank you so much for another fantastic contribution to this show. Kinsey Schofield there, over there in Los Angeles. Let's go to a break now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to go to the phones now. We're going to go back to talking about the grooming gangs, talking about the Prime Minister's latest ridiculous migrant crisis initiative. He's going to freeze the bank accounts of people he thinks might be people smugglers. Well, first of all, I shouldn't think they've got accounts at Lloyd's or Barclays. And secondly, you know, who's going to decide whose bank accounts get closed down? Yeah, well, it's them. You've got to prove it. You've got to prove it. This is a Western democracy. We don't go around prosecuting people who haven't been prosecuted. You with me? I think it's all wrong. It won't work either. It's ridiculous. Just a couple of texts before we go to the phones. And you remember what I was saying? Seb Gorka over in Washington, he's the anti-terrorism aide for Donald Trump. He says that we should take Shamima Begum back here. She's the ISIS bride who languishes in the desert in a tent, where, as far as I'm concerned, she can stay for the rest of her miserable existence. But some of you don't agree with me. Gorka says we should take her back. It's our moral obligation, and we should try her in this country. Now, here's what Scomber says. I agree with 99.98% of what you say on a nightly basis. Thanks, Scomber. But when it comes to Shamima Begum, I have to disagree. Unfortunately, she is our problem, and we need to deal with her. We cannot call for the deportation of foreign criminals from the UK and not accept our own trash back. Love your show, and we'll watch every night. Fair point, Scomber. I just disagree with you. She's not our problem. We took away her citizenship. She's not British. I don't care. Just leave her there. If she comes back here, she's a big terrorist threat. It'll cost us £1 million a year at least to watch her in terms of security, and she's an active ISIS terrorist to this day. So no. Can't come back. That's my view. I respect your view, but I respectfully disagree. Here's someone else who doesn't agree with me. This is from Stuart in Edinburgh. Seb Gorka is right. Begum is our problem. She is a British citizen. No, she is not, Stuart. We took her citizenship away. And then he goes on to say, before we took her passport off her. She doesn't hold dual citizenship. She doesn't hold any citizenship. So I don't want her back here. I don't care about putting her on trial. She'll cause a whole load of problems here. She's still an ISIS terrorist, if you ask me. She willingly aided and abetted the ISIS state and their atrocities. She's a traitor to this country, and she doesn't have to come back. We don't have to come back. I like Seb Gorka a lot. I agree with nearly everything he says. But on this one, no, Seb, you're wrong. You can stick your moral obligation where the sun don't shine. Simple as that. That's my final word on the issue. But look, you guys, I respect what you say. You know, you have your viewpoint. I don't quite agree on this one. Let's go to the phones. This is interesting. We're going to talk to Mohammed in Reading. Hi, Mohammed. You left Islam. Can you explain why?
Yes, I can. I left Islam because
hang on. This is a terrible line. Tell you what, I'm going to take another call. We'll come back to you. We'll sort that line out. I do really want to talk to you. That's Mohammed in Reading. He's got an interesting story. He's left Islam, and if people find out, he's worried he could face severe consequences. So that will be an interesting call. In the meantime, another call on grooming gangs. That's from Trevor in Edinburgh. Hello, Trevor. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Kevin.
Hi.
I've only got a few points to make. Number one, Happy New Year to all of you guys in the station who stand up and speak truth to power, because we need people with bravery and strong voices. I've come to respect certain people I didn't like. I didn't like Sarah Braverman for a long time, Conservative lady.
Mm-hmm.
Today I sent her a letter saying that I really admired her for her guts, because she stood up. And she stood up against all these people who are trying to suppress the investigations into over 40 cities in England where people, young girls as young as 11 years old, have been getting groomed, sexually raped by men for over 24 years. Now, when I was a young child, I was sexually abused in 6 children's homes, and I've published a book about it, which I give out free to people all over the world. My book's got over 6,000 copies all over the world.
Right.
It's called Knocking Down the Wall.
Well, so you know something of what it is like to be an abused, tortured child, which is just such a sad situation. And what we're talking about here, Trevor, let's not forget the magnitude of this scandal. It is estimated there may have been and may be as many as 250,000 victims of these rape gangs. We're talking about mainly young, vulnerable white girls, many of them underage, and their persecutors, their predators who treated them like animals were predominantly, nearly all, Muslim men of Pakistani origin, or British Pakistani origin as well. So that's what we're talking about, and that's why Elon Musk, I think, has done this country a favour by reigniting a scandal that should never have been buried.
Can I just make a final point here?
Yes, please.
Before I go offline.
Yeah.
I have investigated child abuse for coming up for 23 years now throughout the whole world, and I've contacted everybody that's anybody, from the Boston Globe to the people who made the film Spotlight, from the Catholic Church in Rome, who covered up. Now, I would say to you, and I would love somebody to come on and contradict me, I would reckon that since the 1900, this is 2024, there have been at least 150 million children throughout the Western and known world, where Britain formerly had empire, that have been sexually raped or abused in that period. 150 million. Now, they've grown up into adult human beings.
150 million?
150 million.
150 million?
Yep.
I think that sounds like an extraordinary figure.
Now, just let me say this. When a child's abused...
Trevor, I can't get into this. I can't verify 150 million. That seems... I'll be honest with you, that seems a little outlandish. But listen, I take your point, and thank you very much for the call. That's Trevor in Edinburgh. But his essential point is right. You know, we've got to think about these kids. These thousands and thousands of victims they deserve justice. In Rotherham alone, there are documented 1,400 victims. There could be more. And we've got 40, 50 cities around the country where this was prevalent. Thousands. They deserve justice. They deserve, if not a national inquiry, a public inquiry. They deserve the people who turned a blind eye and allowed their persecution to prosper and continue. They deserve them to be prosecuted. That's what we've got to do. Starmer, and we've got some sympathy with what he said. Oh, we need action now. Well, OK, fine. What are you going to do? There's all these victims. They know who persecuted them. They know who turned a blind eye. They know the coppers who refused to listen to them. They know the coppers who said, well, it was a lifestyle choice. They're trash. They're from the council estate. They're little, they're putting it about, all that. They know who they were. Point the finger. Let's arrest those people. Let's prosecute them. That's immediate action. So that's what I'd like to see. Let's go to break now. When we come back, I think Mohammed in Reading will be ready with a better line. So we'll have a chat with Mohammed, who left Islam. It'd be interesting to find out why. So that next, stay where you are.
about a public inquiry is that you're asking a bit more than who. You're asking why, what were the root causes of the cover-up? Was it a fear of being accused of racism? Was it something else? Was it incompetence? What was it? And I think, as I say, on balance, I mean, I'm not waving flags on this one, but on balance, I think an inquiry might finally clear up those answers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Ash Gould is in the studio. He'll be joined by Andre Walker in a little while. Ash will tell me what he's got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. But first, we've got Mohammed from Reading. I think he's got a better line now. Hi, Mohammed.
Hello there, Kevin.
That's better. Now, you left Islam. Explain why.
I can explain why, but I'm not sure whether I will be able to tell people why I have left Islam in the future. I might get arrested for it, according to Keir Starmer's new Islamophobic...
So you, a former Muslim, may get done for Islamophobia. We can't have that. But why did you leave?
I left Islam. We are taught at an early age... read the Quran in Arabic. We're not taught to read it in English, so we haven't got a clue what's in the Quran.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. That is a bit ridiculous, though.
We're never taught about Muhammad, so as I grew up in my teen years, I found this a bit odd. And when I got to about 17, I researched it. And before I get any further, I think it's important, Kevin, that you give me some time to speak about this and also about the rapes of white children.
Well, look, listen, I'm running out of time, Mohammed, because your line was so bad that we have to get you back. Can I get your view on these rape gangs, these grooming gangs? Because the problem is, I don't know what your heritage is, but
Pakistani.
Okay, so you'll know about this. Why was this these horrors perpetrated nearly always by men of Pakistani origin, Muslims of Pakistani origin? What's that about?
I'll tell you what it's about, and this is why I think it's important to have a national inquiry on two fronts, to identify those who ignore the crimes and prosecute them.
Yes, with you.
And to look into the Pakistani Muslim community's attitudes towards white people. And I'll tell you what triggered all this. We are raised as Muslims to look down at the white population, especially the white women, who we regard are taught as slags who sleep around.
And you experienced that yourself when you were younger, that this is what other Muslim men were trying to teach you, yes?
Absolutely.
Well, in the mosque or just generally in the community?
Generally in the community. And when I found out that the false prophet Muhammad raped a 9-year-old, it is no wonder that they emulate that character. And can I also add that I don't want people saying young girls. These are not young girls. Young girls are between 16 and 19.
Yeah, they're underage. They're underage.
Children, please. These are children. And the Pakistani Muslim communities look at these girls as young girls. And when they hear TV presenters saying that young girls, it reinforces that thought pattern.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I say that they're paedophile rapists as much as I can, but you do have to be slightly careful because not all of them were underage, but they were predominantly very young, vulnerable girls as well. So again, I'm going to have to go fairly soon, Mohammed. I'd love you to call tomorrow night. Maybe we could have a proper chat. We'll give you some time. But you think that these atrocities against these poor girls, thousands of these girls, was caused by the fact that Muslim men of Pakistani origin tend to look down on white people and white girls?
Absolutely. And if the politicians were scared of losing votes by investigating this, what does that tell you about the Pakistani Muslim moral standards?
That is something we need to discuss. Will you call me tomorrow night? I'm on air from, I'll be around from 7 to 9. Give me a call. I promise we'll get you on. We should have a chat, yes?
OK, if I'm not working, I will, because I work with children in care.
OK, well, listen, call me if you can, because we need to talk about this properly. I'm sorry we had to keep this so short, but you understand I'm just coming to the end of the show. Whenever you can call me, Mohammed. Thank you very much for